Hello, and thanks for tuning in. My name is Theresa Newhard, and I am the President and CEO of the HMS School for Children with Cerebral Palsy, and I am coming here to you today on my very first social media live feed to tell you a little bit about HMS and to talk about Giving Tuesday, which is today, December 2nd, and to tell you a little bit about what we are planning to do in the next couple of years. So thanks for joining us. And I've got a couple of questions queued up already, but feel free to jump in and ask questions along the way, and we'll make sure that we answer them. So first of all, a little bit about HMS. So HMS School for Children with Cerebral Palsy has been around for about 143 years. And we are serving kids with cerebral palsy and other complex multiple disabilities ranging from the age of 5 years old to 22 years old. We serve 64 kids right now who are absolutely amazing at our campus in West Philadelphia. And it's just an absolutely incredible school. And so I want to just take this moment and also invite any of you to come and visit us and get to know who we are, what we do, and to let us show you around a little bit. So today is Giving Tuesday, and you might have heard of it. This is a new-ish global day of giving that came about in 2012, coming off of the heels of Black Friday and Cyber Monday and a lot of emphasis on consumerism and buying gifts. And Giving Tuesday is really about asking our community to look a little bit broader and think about how can we direct some of that giving to people in need in our community. And so this is a really big day for fundraising for nonprofits and for HMS. And today, our fundraising goal at HMS is $25,000. So this is a pretty big goal for us, and I'm here to ask for your support and tell you about why we would like to have your support and what we're going to do with that $25,000. So the good news already is that we are very, very far along our way in raising that $25,000. And I have to give a huge shout out right now to three very special partners who have helped us make a big dent in that fundraising goal. So a big thank you to Heckendorn Shiles Architects and Stockton Real Estate Advisors, LLC, and Pennoni. So these three groups came together and said they are willing to commit $9,000 as a match goal. So for $9,000 of individual giving, these three companies will match that dollar for dollar, which will double the impact. So huge thank you to those three partners, all of those companies, and we'll have them linked so you can check them out. Really, really community-minded groups in Philadelphia. They know the disability community, they know the region, and they are great partners, so check them out. So what are these funds going to be raised to do? So in this case, this is a little bit of like inside baseball here. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you like that these funds are actually going to be used for general operating expense, right? So they're not going to a specific program or a specific product, but those funds in general operating are going to help us do something really important, which is to conduct a strategic planning process, which is a long, multi-phased approach that many organizations go through to set their roadmap for the future. And it's best practice to do this every 3 to 5 years, right? And this means you're getting out of like, what are we doing in September? What are we doing next year? And we're looking way out into the future. We're saying, who do we want to be 5 years from now? What will our impact be? And what will we need to do in order to get there? So that process of this planning process has a cost. We have to bring in consultants who can help facilitate that process and make sure that we have all of the voices of our stakeholder involved and that we have data about what's happening locally and beyond that will help us make really good decisions. And so any gift that's made today is directly going to help us not just to fund this process now, but to really lay the foundation for the next 3 to 5 years at HMS. So we appreciate those of you who have already committed to contributing today. Thank you so much for for doing that. And for those of you who are thinking about whether you may want to make a gift on Giving Tuesday, thank you for tuning in to consider giving to HMS. I did just get notice that we are only $2,795 away from our goal. Woo! So this is pretty amazing. We have until midnight tonight to close that gap, just under 2,800, although I would really like to beat that now that I know that we're really close. And remember that we do have that match. So those dollars will go to support HMS's strategic planning process, which is going to help HMS figure out what our vision for impact is over the next 3 to 5 years. All right, so that's a little bit about why we're here today, a little bit about HMS, a little bit about Giving Tuesday campaign. Now I want to address some of the questions that we've gotten. So some folks already submitted their questions ahead of time. I'm going to start with those. But if you have any questions about HMS, Giving Tuesday, or strategic planning, I'm here to answer them. All right, so the first question was, what will the funds be used for that we're raising for Giving Tuesday? And I just talked about this a little bit. So these will be general operating funds that we will use to help cover the cost of our strategic planning process to raise funds to set our roadmap for the next 3 to 5 years. Good next question, which is, what is a strategic plan and why are we doing one? So a strategic plan is a structured, phased approach that usually takes about 6 to 12 months long that many nonprofits and other businesses go through to establish their roadmap for the future. This roadmap for us is going to include a vision for impact. So this is an aspirational vision of how we intend to impact the world 5 years from now. We'll also include goals, objectives, milestones that are going to help us get there, and measures and metrics that we'll be using to monitor our success. And there's a lot of organization into the implementation of this. And so this whole process is going to take us about 8 months long, and it's going to help us make sure that we are really intentional about our future. And not only that, an important aspect of strategic planning, this is the part I love the most, is that it's a really collaborative, inclusive process. So to get a good strategy, you need voices from all of your stakeholders. So for HMS, that means staff, board, our students, our families, and our community partners. So in that process, we're collecting insight from all of those partners through surveys and focus groups and interviews, and all of that will help us make sure that the plan that we have is a plan that we can all support. So what really makes it impactful is the cohesion and the buy-in of all the stakeholders into that process. Question, right?
Yeah.
I see it. Is this one here of what are the 3 top long-term priorities for HMS over the next 5 years? Well, that's a great question. That's part of what we're going to be figuring out in the strategic planning process. So we're co-creating that together. So that means I'm not the only one who gets to decide that. The board is not the only group that gets to decide that. Our community decides that together in this process. But what I would say, and this is like a good segue into another question I got, which is, what is the main focus of the strategic plan? For me, it really starts with the vision, right? We have our mission. Our mission has been around for 143 years. That's not changing. But what's our vision for how we're going to show up in this world? So I would say that vision for impact, that shared vision, is more cohesive so that people know what we're trying to do, right? Our staff know, our families know, our partners all know what HMS is striving for. So it's a clear, cohesive, and it's inclusive vision for the future. So again, we need all the voices at the table, because if this is Theresa Newhard's vision, I'm not sure if everybody's going to agree with that, or if that's the best vision, or is that's going to get everybody to row in the same direction. We need voices of people throughout our entire community to help us figure out what that vision for impact will look like. For me, getting that clarity and that alignment there is like the most important thing. And another piece of that is that we're doing that in a values-oriented way. So we're really leaning into our values, the way we want to show up as we move through this process. Thank you for that question. All right. Here's another question that I have. Okay, this is a different one. This is how did the Rite Aid closure affect HMS? All right. So you may not know this, but the Rite Aid Foundation and Rite Aid, the pharmacy, closed earlier this year. And Rite Aid Foundation had been a really big supporter of HMS. So over the past 10 years, Rite Aid had granted HMS about $100,000. And one of the ways that they did this was at our Giving Tuesday campaign. They used to give a match of $10,000 for the past few years. And that was the match challenge for our donors. So we found out in October of this year that the foundation was closing its doors as well, and that we would no longer have access to those funds that we had budgeted for, that we had planned for. This happens in the nonprofit world. You think you're going to get some money, you're expecting it, you have a great community partner, and then something happens. And so what did we do? We had to pivot, and we had to figure out, okay, how do we get that $10,000 that we're really counting on this year? And that's where I can go back to our three partners who we asked to support us and who, without hesitation, stepped up to the plate. So again, that's just a really big thank you to Heckendorn Shiles Architects, Stockton Real Estate Advisors, LLC, and Pennoni, who all came together to replace those crucial funds. So thank you so much to our partners for doing that so that we are in a good place this year. All right, next question we have here is, there have been recent proposed changes to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, so that's IDA. How would consolidated grant programs affect HMS? All right, so right now, HMS is receiving about $25,000 each year from IDA grant funding. So we do receive funds from IDA. Those funds go to support our assistive technology program and our visual program. So really, really important areas at HMS. The complexity of our students' disabilities means that communication and using technology to communicate is essential. That's a huge part of what we do, is helping students find a way to communicate for themselves using assistive technology. And many of our students have visual impairment as well. And so these funds allow us to bring in very specific supports for those students who have those needs. So there would be a big impact to that. Okay, great. We thought I had a question, but I think we're good. Next question that I have here that I received was, okay, it reads, my question is regarding plans for the other building. There have been many suggestions since the daycare left. What is the current vision for that space? All right, so next door to our main campus that's connected to us, there's another building, and historically a daycare was renting that space and using it. And that daycare has been out of that space since before COVID, at least that's my understanding. And so there's been some discussion in the past of what are we going to do with that space. So we don't exactly know, but what I do know is that in the strategic planning process, space and campus planning has to be one of our priorities. So we have this amazing campus that we've been at for well over 100 years. But if you're in an old building in Philadelphia, you probably know that there's some challenges that come along with that in terms of the maintenance and the repairs, and certainly for our population, accessibility. This is pre-ADA. We have done amazing things to try to make this building and our campus really work for us, but we're really hitting our capacity. And so that building needs to be part of our consideration for the future as we think about what does it look like to grow, and what would it look like if we had facilities that really matched our program instead of the other way around. So again, if you're in an older building, you probably know what I'm talking about. We're really trying to make the space work for us. Instead, in the strategic planning process, I'd really like to get to figuring out how do we figure out what programs we need and what we're going to need in the future to serve our students, and then what are the facilities need to look like to support that. So I'm really glad that that space is available, but we haven't earmarked it for anything yet, because we're going to be asking some big questions about where would we start, what are our priorities, and all of that is going to be part of the strategic planning process. All right, I think I have a few more. Okay, and again, keep them coming live if you have any. So this question is, as we embark on our strategic planning process, I'm curious to hear your thoughts and hopes around this question. In 5 years, what are the top 3 things that you hope an employee would notice or highlight as a change or growth point in our organization? And the same question in 10 years. Love this question. Love this question. And then there's another question that's, what would we want parents or family members to notice or highlight as significant changes? So again, I need to emphasize that in our strategic planning process, we need a lot of voices in to answer that question. But I can tell you what I would like to see, or what I would hope to see, at least in this process. So a strengthened, clearer vision for how HMS serves the needs of our students, increased program space, and more capacity for innovation. And for staff, I'd really like to see increased satisfaction from staff that HMS is an employer of choice. Like, I would love for people to go home and be talking with their friends and their family members about HMS, about their job, and really truly feeling like they work at the very best place that anybody could possibly work at. That's going to take a lot of time, but I would love to see that happen, because we spend so much time at work, and the people who come to work here are so committed to our mission. I want staff to also feel that we're committed to them, we being the administration and leadership of the school. For our families, this isn't necessarily a change, but I want them to still see and to know and understand the quality of our program and our focus on individualized learning. And what would be different, I think, in terms of growth is, how do we share that? So coming up with better ways, because not only for families, but with our community, to really show the impact that HMS School has on the students and on their quality of life over many years, and therefore on their success into adulthood. If your kid is in a public school, you probably know that it's difficult to get really individualized education. I have 4 kids in public schools, and it's hard. The teachers are really managing a lot. Here at HMS School, the approach is really different. So although we have 64 kids, each one of our kids has about 10 to 14 staff who work with them to create a really individualized program of study. So this means every student has access not just to education, but to PT, so physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, recreational therapy, assistive tech, and social work and transition services. And so I want all of that to stay, but I want us to figure out better ways to help our families understand the growth and the changes and the successes that their students and their family members are experiencing here, and for us to be able to share that more with our world. I would also like to have more families that aren't here now know about us, right? So I'm hoping that there are more families who didn't know about us today, who in 5 or 10 years from now will know about us. So that gets to really expanding our reach, connecting in other places throughout the state, right, and beyond. We have a lot of families who move to send their kid to HMS School. If you have a kid who has struggled to find a school environment where they really belong and where you really feel like they're thriving, then you get it. You know how hard it is to figure that out, and our families have really moved mountains to be able to send their children here. And I'm hoping that in 5 and 10 years from now, we're serving more families who didn't know something like HMS existed, and then who find us and are able to get the support they need. Okay, it looks like we might have a question here. Okay, I don't live in Philadelphia, but what are some of the services that we offer I have cerebral palsy too. So thank you so much for reaching out to us and connecting with us. And we would love to connect with you more. And you're really just kind of hitting the nail on the head of what I was just saying. I think that there's so much that HMS School can do outside the walls of Philadelphia. And that's something that I would really be interested in exploring in our strategic plan. Like, how can we work with families who aren't going to move to Philadelphia, but could benefit from knowing some of what we know with the expertise around education and supports for kids with CP? What would it look like to be consulting with more school districts and other educational institutions and working with advocacy groups? So right now, our services are really just their day school education, and then we have residential services only for our students and respite services for our students and their families. My hope is that over time, we're able to offer more outside of those programs to people, not just in Pennsylvania, but really across the country, across the world, such as yourself. So stay tuned, and if you have any ideas in the meantime, we would really love to hear about them. You probably will see, we are presenting at a lot of conferences, so we do try, and we are asked often to present on what we're learning. So you might see us in other places, but I'm hoping this is an area that we can grow and develop. Yep, thank you so much. All right, I think I'm through most of my questions. I see a new one. Here we go. Hi, I'm a current student at UPenn, right around the corner, and was wondering what university students can do to help at the moment. Are you accepting volunteers? Thank you so much for reaching out. Yes, we are, and we would love to connect with you. We have a ton of volunteer opportunities here at HMS. I'd be curious to hear what you are studying at Penn, because we have some really specific opportunities for nursing students, for students who are interested in assistive technology, for education students, we take students who are training to be therapists, PT, OT, ST, but then we also always have volunteers who can come and support HMS at our events. We have a really big annual fundraising event called Community Day. We're always looking for volunteers to come. You would be great for that because you're at Penn. And you can email volunteers@hmsschool.org and we will get you hooked up and we will connect you to figure out what works best for you. So thank you so much for that ask.
Yes,
okay, the next question was, are we going to save this live? Yes, we are. We are going to, and I think we are going to figure out how to add captions to this, because I know that when I'm following, I don't always catch everything. So we will get it captioned, we will get it saved, we will share it out. And we would love to hear from you if this was helpful, because we can do this more often and we can talk about some of the more specific programmatic elements that might be useful for people to hear. All right, I'm just going to check and see if we have any other questions. We have just 2 minutes left, so we did a really good job with our time.
And that's Becky right there.
Hey, Becky. Hi. Our board chair just joined, Becky Bradbeer. Thanks for popping on. I know there were so many other people, but I had a hard time seeing the names as they were going through. Thank you so much for being with us. If you are interested in donating today, I don't even think I covered that, but if you are interested in making a gift today to support Giving Tuesday, to support HMS, to support our strategic plan for the future, please go to hmsschool.org/donate, and it will take you to a place where you can make an electronic donation. We are accepting donations for this campaign until midnight tonight, so you've got time. We'll make sure that we're posting about it. Really appreciate you listening. Another way that you can give is to spread the word, right? So you're giving to us by telling other people about who we are. And I'm getting an update that I have to announce that our fundraising goal, $2,295. So in a short amount of time, we've raised another $500. So thank you all for that, everybody. So help us get across that gap and close that gap and hit our goal of $25,000. And thank you so much for being with us. We hope to see you very soon.